Well, good for him. We need something, don't we? So we know what's happening.
For free.
Absolutely.
For the first time. But that also starts in June of this year. When most people think about scores, Scott, they think about sports, school tests. You get points for certain actions and behaviors and answers to questions, and those are total to determine your score. Credit scoring isn't that easy. Credit score models use several different formulas that basically means that the value of any given bit of information in your report might depend on other bits of information.
That sounds really confusing. I'm confused.
Well, let's take a non-credit item to understand how this works. Okay, let's say supposedly your sister calls you to report that her husband is more than an hour late in coming home from work, and she asks you, do you think he's having an affair? To answer the question, you would need to review what you know about this man, including his attitude, his family, his general moral standards, and whether he's cheated in the past. Using all these variables, you could then predict whether your brother-in-law is being unfaithful or just stopped off to buy the wife a birthday present.
That's a clever way of looking at it, actually. You got any other examples there?
Well, let's suppose that your brother-in-law is a stand-up guy with character. Okay, but you've personally observed your neighbor in a clinch with a woman who's not his wife. If your neighbor was an hour late coming home and your neighbor's wife was asking you what your opinion was, whether he was faithful or not, you might reach a different conclusion. So the same behavior, coming home late, could evoke two very different predictions based on the information at your disposal. The number of factors that the FICA formulas evaluate is infinitely greater. So you can see how difficult it can be sometimes to predict the outcome of certain behaviors. There is one major truth to this. FICA models determine more adversely against you what you're doing currently than something that's older than 2 or 3 years.
So it's not all about your past. It's not just all based on the past, then, is what you're saying?
It's your entire history.
Oh, that makes a lot of difference. So tell me a little bit about current behavior then. How is our current behavior going to help us?
Well, of course, reestablishing credit, conversely, your scores are going to go up. A late payment currently will affect your score much more than something that was 2 or 3 years old. So the way the system's set up, it affects your score worse.
It seems it's a lot easier to lose points on your credit report than it is to gain them. So I suppose it's really important to know how to improve and protect that score.
Exactly. It's completely correct. It is important to rebuild credit when you have bad credit and to put a lot of time between the negative history and the positive history.
It's starting to make a bit more sense.
It
Last year, I became a RE/MAX real estate agent, and I had several clients that we tried to get into houses that I sent to some mortgage companies that didn't qualify, and after sending them to Steve, within 6 months we had them in a house. If you're watching this and you're considering, and you have poor credit, you're considering going bankrupt, my advice is don't. Bankruptcies stay on your credit, they stay on your public record file. You will spend 2 to 3 times more money to go bankrupt than it will cost you to go through Steve West School of Credit.
Steve West is here from the Steve West School of Credit, and we're talking about your credit. Very interesting stuff, but Steve, it does sound a little bit top secret. It's what it sounds like to me. It's getting a little bit clear, but with all this top secret stuff, can we ever figure out how to improve our own score?
Well, they won't release completely the information to us, but Fair Isaac has released enough information to give us a general idea of how scores are calculated. There are basically 5 different factors in determining your score. Factor number 1 is your payment history, which makes up about 35% of your credit history. Factoring on credit history is things like the greater number of accounts without late payments, the better. Length of positive credit history, the longer the better. Length of time that has passed since you have the most recent negative item on your credit report. For instance, if you have a collection that's 6 years and 11 months old, it isn't affecting your score all that much. However, if you pay that collection off, it becomes a current negative item, which then your score could plummet. It could stay on your credit report for 7 more years also, and you lose the money. Severe unpaid debts, like public records, judgments, also could plummet your score. Severity of quantity of delinquencies, a 30-day late from 5 years ago wouldn't hurt you as much as a recent collection or a 90-day late in last year. Factor number 2 is the amount owed or the extent of debt, which is about 30%.
This one always gets me, the amount owed. Explain that to us, Steve.
Well, let's say if you got a credit card that has a $1,000 limit on it, and you owe $1,000. The extent is 100%.
Right.
So your credit score would be affected much worse because you're using the entire balance. The quantity of accounts is also important. The quantity of credit cards. Too many credit cards can lower your score because of the extent that you have. I recommend about three credit cards maximum. Ratio of credit balances to credit limits. Some experts say that you should be at about 1/3. So if you have a $1,000 limit, you should be at about $300 when it reports to the credit bureau. It's important also to understand that the credit bureau, the payment that you make must reach the credit card company before it reports to the credit bureau. So that's important also. The amount on all the accounts, how much you're dipping into the money that you have access to. Remember, if you pay off your credit cards in full, it has to be before it reports to the credit bureau. How much mortgage or other type of loans you have is a good sign if you can afford to make as many payments in a cycle as possible. There's no law against paying off early.
Now, so far we've got our payment history and the amount we owe. Those are two of our factors. What other factors are there, Steve?
Well, factor number 3 is the length of credit history that you have. The longer, the better. That's about 15%. And Fair Isaac breaks it down this way. Overall length of credit history, how many accounts, how long, which one of the key factors is having something, a long history, which is something I recommend to people if you know somebody that has a credit card that they've been having for about 10, 15 years, 5 years, whatever the fact may be. What you do is you become an authorized user of that credit card. And then what happens is that credit card history reports to your credit report. So now you inherit the 10-year, 15-year history. How long have you been having specific credit cards been established? How long has it been since you have had certain accounts? Remember, always pay out accounts in full every month. For an explanation of this, what you need to do is call for a free consultation. The fourth factor, factor number 4, is how much new credit are you assuming, which is about 10%. This section is basically to flag people who are suddenly seeking new lines of credit. Somebody has a lot of inquiries. How many new accounts do you have, particularly credit card accounts? Remember, stay at about 3. How long has it been since you've opened new accounts? How many inquiries in the last 12 months? On your credit report, it shows 24 months, but the 12 months is what hurts you.
So that sounds like a lot. Are there any other factors, Steve?
Last factor is types of credit that you get, which is about 10%. It's important to have a healthy mix of installment accounts and credit cards. And basically, that's pretty much it for the factors that Fair Isaac has been releasing to us.
But that's quite a lot. I mean, you've got 5 factors. They leave no stone unturned.
You can pretty much determine how to really affect your score good with these factors and understanding how these percentages work.
I'm glad that you explained to us to try to get down to 3 credit cards, because I mean, all my credit cards are at 0 balance, but I have about 8 of them. So in a way, I should try and reduce them. I don't need them, but I need to reduce that down to about 3.
Well, not in your case. I mean, in most cases, you're using yours perfectly. So closing some of your accounts could possibly make your score go a bit lower.
See how fascinating this is, ladies and gentlemen? You can't tell us that this isn't interesting.
I can't tell you, I've seen 10, 15, 20 people that come and tried to work on their credit themselves and messed it up worse than if they had just come to somebody that has the expertise to educate them, to help them to restore their credit and to show them why their credit looks the way it looks.
If you're sitting out there and you have bad credit and you think the only way is bankruptcy, I just ask that you please come and see Steve first.
Yes, I did, everybody. So as I was saying to Scott, being aware of the factors and following the advice that I've given on how to act on each one of these, you can get on the road to better credit.
Steve, for someone who's never been introduced to the world of credit, this might be the first time they've ever seen it and they're feeling a bit overwhelmed, what advice would you give them?
Well, the advice that I give people is to study. You know, credit it will affect your life from living a nice lifestyle or living a mediocre lifestyle, as we showed you with some of the interest rates. Study. Come in for one-on-one visits with me, let me educate you and give you the information. That's really what I'm here for.
Well, if coming in to see you is anything like today, you've already started to like clear the fog for me. You know, be honest, I didn't have a clue, did I?
Well, the 1 million score kind of gave it away.
Yeah, it did, didn't it? So people can actually come see you, sit down one-on-one with you, and you'll explain this in greater detail.
Sure would.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, once again, for those of you out there who are confused and worried about your credit, you can do something about it, but it means becoming educated. After all, as I always tell everyone, knowledge is power. First, you need to understand credit and how it works and who keeps your information. Second, understand how to read your credit report. Third, know what your particular score means and how it's calculated. Then you can take steps to restore or re-establish your credit and improve your life. That's where Steve West can help. Give Steve a call today and let him help you take control of your credit. I want to thank you, Steve, for being here with us today and for helping other people help themselves.
Thank you, Scott.
Thank you all very much indeed.